As I said earlier, we're going to hear from a different lens. It's not as prevalent for men to go through domestic violence, but it happens. And another very brave human. Sure.
You are pathetic, you are useless, you are worthless, you're a failure. You can't do anything right. Everybody hates you. I am the only one in the world who will put up with shit like you. I am the one that protects you from everyone. You are lucky to have me. You owe me. This is all your fault. You made me do this. And the one I believed most of all, go on, tell. No one will believe you. My name is Tim. I'm the founder of Stand Again, a platform that supports male victims of family violence. I want to deeply thank the Women's Justice League for having me here today and to share my experience with you. Those words you just heard were my daily reality. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you hear those words month in, month out, year in, year out, from somebody you love, from somebody you trust, then it affects you. I'm going to talk to you about three things today. What coercive control looked like inside my relationship, what it did to me, and what happened when I went looking for help. Coercive control does not look like what I just described to you, at least not from the outside. From the outside, I was ticking all the boxes. I was a director, and I had over 20 staff. I did my executive education, and I had a beautiful wife. I had a lovely home that I had renovated myself, and I had two gorgeous kids. And if you asked me how I was doing, I would give you the expected answer. I'm good. But behind closed doors, my world was very different. I was married to my wife for almost a decade. And by the time the end of that happened, I was running by two emotions, shame and guilt. In my world, I was made to feel like I was nothing. I was a constant fuck-up. I ran by a set of moving rules. I could never fully learn. I could do everything right, but still get screamed at over even the smallest of things. The consequences of not being exactly what she wanted of me 100% of the time were both unpredictable and severe. My wife had exacting rules I had to follow. I'll give you an example, and it's going to sound silly. It wasn't until I was out of the relationship that I realised how silly this was. She had a very exacting way she needed to make her cup of tea. I had to get everything ready, put the kettle on, then stand beside it. If I moved, stand beside it. And the exact instant it clicked, I had to pour it into the cup of tea. Then I had to set a timer. Wait precisely 3 minutes. And when the timer went off, remove the bag. Not a second sooner, not a second later. Then carefully pour the milk and rush it to her. If I got any of that wrong, or if she suspected I hadn't followed that process exactly, she'd say, I know you haven't done this right, I'll get you to make her do it again, even if she's in a different room. And the reality was, I was scared. I had been in the face of her rage many times before. I knew what would happen. Even if it wasn't rage, it would be contempt, it would be disgust, it would be insults that would cut me to the core. So I panic. I would make the cup of tea precisely as she demanded. And that's the way it was for every small act. And I stood, the expression on my face, how quickly or slowly I responded to her when she spoke, all governed by someone else's standards. And the penalty for falling short was rage, it was contempt, it was telling me how pathetic and useless I am, every day for years. The tea is not about the tea. It's about training someone. It's about conditioning them to believe that she is in control, that you have no agency here, that you have no voice, no ability to make even the smallest decisions about your life. And it worked across all facets of my life. I couldn't buy coffee on the way into work without being screamed and yelled at. I had to eat the food I was permitted to eat. And if I liked something, it would take me months to work out how to ask for it. Schweppes do this orange and mango mineral water. It's such a silly little thing, such a small pleasure. I spent months working out how to ask permission to buy it. I tried sneaking it into the shopping list. I never said you could get that. I point out it's only $1.50. And I hear, you are so irresponsible with money. This is why I'm in charge of finances. Anything, no matter how small a decision, I'd have to seek her permission. Or she'd go nuclear. That was the name that I ended up giving it, going nuclear. Because it happened so often it needed a name. Any small spark, no matter how trivial. Even something silly like leaving my tea bag in my teacup. And within seconds, the world would be on fire. It wouldn't stay on topic, she'd attack everything. How I talk, how I breathe, how I stand, how I smell. She'd attack my family, my friendships, my work. She'd make deeply hurtful comments about the things that matter the most to me, like my deceased father, who she had never met. And then afterwards she would deny it even happened. If I raised it, I was the one being dramatic. I was the one who had the problem. I was the one who started it. I was the one who caused it. That denial would make me question my own memory, my own reality, and should reinforce it. My memory is better than yours. You never remember anything correctly. You always retell stories to make me look bad. And I'd heard those phrases so often that I stopped trusting my own version of events. If she said something didn't happen, I would actually start to question maybe it didn't happen. If she said, you started this, I would question maybe I did start it somehow. When the person you live with is constantly telling you that your memory is broken, you eventually believe them. And it would happen again and again. Every week, sometimes every day, the explosion, then the denial, then me apologising for something I did not do just to make it stop. Eventually I was convinced to move out of the master bedroom. Despite her only working 2 days a week, she complained that I was disturbing her. I was too loud, I was too hot, I moved around too much. She needed her rest. So for years I slept on the couch. But to be honest, it was freedom for me. The only time I felt slightly safe. I say slightly because she had this habit of coming into the living room at 4 o'clock in the morning and screaming at me over a dream that she had. Or something she imagined I had said or done. And I learned to sleep so lightly to be able to hear those footsteps coming down the hallway, because I knew what would happen if I didn't give the perfect answer, the perfect response with the perfect tone and facial expression. Eventually, after months of begging, I got a bed in her crafting room. I had to jump over supplies and rubbish and mess on the floor to get to it, but I had a door I could close. Words can't describe the feeling of finally having a door you can close. That extra couple of seconds between feet coming down a hallway and a door handle turning, those are life-saving seconds. The control didn't stop at where I should sleep or what I could eat. She told me she wanted a one-sided open marriage, that sex is more important to her than it was to me, so she should feel free to pursue relationships with other men, that it will help our marriage. I still chuckle at the irony. I was feeling brave that particular day. And I asked her, how would you react if I sought sex outside of marriage as well? She flew into a rage. Said she'd see it as a betrayal, as evidence of my harm towards her. And then there were the threats. She had threatened to go to my work, to call my family, to destroy my reputation if I didn't do as she said. This is all your fault. You made me do this. Well, there was a worse threat of all. I will kill myself if you don't do what I tell you to do. It'll be on you. That wasn't said once, I've said repeatedly during arguments, year after year, as a way to end any resistance I had. When someone you love threatens to take their own life unless you comply, you comply. There is no space for your own needs in a moment like that. There's no room to push back. There's only fear in the weight of believing you're responsible for keeping another person alive by doing exactly as you are told. So you end up walking on eggshells. So you don't say or do the wrong thing, so she doesn't rage at you. So she doesn't take her own life because you were standing the wrong way. Walking on eggshells, I've always hated that phrase. I don't think it even slightly captures the experience. Eggshells implies you have to be careful with your feet. It is so much more than that. You're not living inside her head. What does she need right now? What is she going to need in the next hour? What haven't I done? Am I showing the right amount of warmth and affection towards her? Not too much that she grows suspicious. Not too little that she accuses me of being cold. You're constantly moving, constantly anticipating, constantly performing so the next explosion doesn't come. Every decision is filtered through that one question. Is this going to set her off? And when the answer is anything can set her off, you stop being a person. You become a machine that exists to keep someone else calm, performing the role you have been assigned, saying and doing the things you're being trained to do, because that's what you've learned survival means. Each of those things can be explained away. She's particular, she has a temper, she's insecure. You put them together in the financial control, the isolation, the rage, the threats, the monitoring of every movement, the erosion of every freedom. You put them together and they form a pattern of domination that touches every part of your life. That pattern has a name. It's coercive control. That's what my life looked like. Here's what it did to me. I once walked into Kmart and picked up a $3 t-shirt. I was holding it in my hands and I was halfway to the counter and my body locked. I stood there unable to move, running threat assessments in my head. She's going to see this on the transaction account. How she's going to react? She'll rage at me for spending $3 on a t-shirt. So I should go back. No, I can't, because I told her I was coming to the shops today. So if I don't buy anything, she's going to lose at me for wasting my time and effort, for wasting the fuel. So I should buy it. But if I buy it, she's going to see it on the transaction account. She's going to rage at me. Maybe it was 2 minutes I stood there. Maybe it was an hour, I don't know. And I started to laugh at myself. There in the middle of Kmart, driven a little mad. Here I am, a director of one of the largest firms in the world, and I could not make a decision about whether I should or should not buy a $3 fucking t-shirt. I really was pathetic. I really was useless. I really was worthless. You know, after the divorce, I tell people about that moment, and they can't reconcile it. But I know you, that doesn't make any sense. Well, what are you talking about? I know your wife, she's amazing. And for me, it was all true. That cycling between warmth and cruelty created a mental fog. My brain could no longer function properly. I lost all trust in my memory, my perception, my ability to be able to critically think. I couldn't tell the difference between what was real and what had been installed. So what coercive control does, it rewires your nervous system and messes with your brain until you can no longer know where up and where down is, who did what right and wrong are. You lose all agency over your decisions in your mind. It was my kids that helped me reach my awakening point. I came home one day. My phone went off with a reminder from the childcare that some forms needed to be submitted that night. My kids were playing in the living room. I came in the world. My wife was in the kitchen. And I asked, hey honey, I just got that email from childcare. Can't remember, did we submit those forms? That moment for me, it wasn't about rage. It wasn't about the names that she was calling me. It wasn't about how red in the face she had gotten. It was those kids. So watching those two beautiful girls, those beautiful, sweet children, and how they reacted to hearing their mum calling their dad insults at the top of their lungs. And it was nothing. They just kept playing like nothing was happening at all, like it was just another Tuesday. And it was. I realised at that point I was teaching those two little girls the wrong lesson about what healthy relationships look like. I made a decision before that to stay in that relationship, to protect my kids, to shield them, to give them the tools they needed to survive. But instead, I taught them something different. I taught them that this was normal. I taught them that this was acceptable. So I did what most people do. I went looking for help. I turned to the people who were closest to me. I had lost so many over the years. So many my wife didn't get along with, so they just had to go. I had one friend, my mum, and my sister-in-law left. And that was tenuous. My wife was already telling me how toxic they were and they had to go. What I didn't know at the time was that she had been having her own conversations with them for well over a year. She'd been calling them up, telling them that I was mentally unstable, that she was the poor person doing her best with me, that I was a problem. So by the time I opened my own mouth to speak, the narrative had already been set. The well had already been poisoned. I spoke to my mum, bless her got the socks. She said, happy wife, happy life, what are you doing wrong? Or my sister-in-law. And she said, I spoke to your wife a couple of months ago. And she said that you were being really stressed at work and you've been taking it out on everybody. Don't get me wrong, my family loved me. They weren't being cruel, they just didn't have the framework to know what I was telling them. Anytime that they had asked me how I was going, I had answered, "I'm good." My wife had told me that she was struggling and that it was all my fault. So when I did finally start to open up, my reality and theirs simply didn't match. They only saw my wife as the charming, social, extroverted, attractive lady who loved to be the centre stage of every party. The person I lived with behind closed doors, and when I was describing was someone they hadn't ever met. But I got lucky. Through a fortunate act of timing, I was made redundant from my director role. As part of the EAP, I was connected to a psychologist called Scott. He was the first person who helped me say the word abuse. And once I had the language, I could finally start to see the scaffolding of the world I was living inside. So I reached out for legal help. I wanted to find a lawyer that could help me safely exit this relationship and protect my kids. So I used those free initial consultations. The first lawyer I spoke to had lost the case before I even got 10 minutes into the conversation. Sorry, mate, that's going to be a tough one. The second and third lawyers told me to prepare for the worst, maybe every second weekend. And I plead even as a victim of family violence, and that just shrugged. My wife's voice would ring through my ears. Go on, tell. No one will believe you. And I started to think she was right. But that's not true. I got lucky on where before. He's in this room right now. They listened. They asked questions that made it clear that they understood the situation. They understood the dynamic that I was in. They understood that my children came first. And they started to help me think through my exit plan. I said something in that first meeting I've since been told by others I should never have said to a lawyer. I said, I don't care about the money. They're all on the ground, it's just money. I just care about my kids. They were the people that understood that my kids came first. Their support, their guidance, their legal strategy, it changed everything for my kids and I. Go on, tell. No one will believe you. And I did, and she was right. Some people did not believe me. But a few people did. Scott and my lawyers. They proved my ex-wife wrong. That as a victim of family violence, you can stand up. You can have your voice heard, you can share your experiences, and you can find people who will support you. Once the dust settled on my own divorce, I started to share my story. And something happened I wasn't quite expecting. Other men came forward. Mothers came forward. Friends and victims reached out, all expressing the same thing. You're describing my best friend's wife right now. You're describing my son. You're describing me. And I realised there were many victims of abuse who were not as lucky as I was, who were still in it. Who were still being told that they are the problem. Who were still hearing those same words I opened with and still believing them to be true. So I did what most people do when faced with a problem like that. I built a solution myself. Created language for male victims of family violence, created tools to support them through and out of their situations. Things I had learnt along the way. Things I had built myself through my own journey. That's what standing in is. It gives voice to victims of family violence so they realise they are not alone. It provides guidance on safely navigating and exiting abusive relationships with victims and their families. And it provides CPD workshops for professionals like lawyers so they can better understand coercive control and how to work with male victims of family violence. Because all victims of family violence, man, woman, child, they just need one person to be able to hear them to make a world of difference. Thank you to the Women's Justice League family. Thank you all. This is Stand Again, lived experience platform for male survivors of family violence. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice might just help another man find his. If you're looking for one-on-one support, you can book coaching with a member of the Stand Again team. Simply visit standagain.com.au, where you will also find grounded information on surviving and recovering from family violence as a man. As always, remember that no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can stand again.